Ahoy, hoy, friends! Welcome to the Salon. It is our Disco Season 5 retrospective. We have seen it all. We had 10 episodes this final season. Uh, be sure to check back our previous videos doing each episode deep dive. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the 5th season in full. And probably in a couple of months, we're thinking give it some time to breathe, and then maybe around the premiere anniversary in September, we'll likely do a full series retrospective review. So be on the lookout for that. You know where you get all those updates is when you like and subscribe all of the things over on YouTube, Twitter, and Blue Sky. We are at Salon Trek on all three. But before we get into the season today, we're going to talk about the news of Trek this week. We got some exciting news. It has finally been confirmed. Star Trek Prodigy Season 2 will be out on Netflix in the US and many other places July 1st. All 20 episodes. This will be the first time that we get a full season drop of Star Trek. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. It's the Netflix model of binging. This will be the first time we see it in the Trek world, so that'll be interesting for sure. And just as a side programming note for us, since we're talking about it, because they're dropping all 20 episodes at once, we might reassess, but likely starting the week following. So I believe it's July 11th, that Thursday. No, yeah, no. What's 4 plus 7 counting? 11th. Did I do that right? I did math correct.
You did.
I need a banner. Simple math is the weirdest struggle for me. Anyway, June 11th, following a week off for July 4th for us American-centric Americans, for our Independence Day break. July 11th, we will start doing likely 2 episodes each week for 10 weeks, breaking down season 2. We might change that up a little bit depending on the stories. If they've got, if episodes 10 and 11 are a 2-parter, we'll probably adjust so that we can do 2 or 3 in a week. But get excited. Star Trek Prodigy Season 2 is finally coming out July 1st. Highly, highly, highly recommend and urge folks watch it right away. For Netflix, the first 24 hours are really important. The first week and the first month are really important. So watching the episodes, rewatching them, put it on in the background while you're doing work. The best way to get more Star Trek is to watch the Star Trek that we are given in the meantime. Plus, Prodigy is really fucking cool. It's not generally geared towards me as an audience member, but I love it. And it quickly became, after season 1 was fully out, I was like, this is probably the show that I would recommend people who want to get into Star Trek start with. It's geared towards kids and family for sure, but it's a really fun entry point.
If you haven't watched season 1, please watch it. It's available on Netflix, and then watch our season 1 retrospective, which aired on our channel back in, I think, January-ish.
Yes.
And Aaron Wacky actually joined us in the chat, so check it out if you haven't already.
No spoilers. I don't know, but we did make the active request of killing off Chakotay, so I'm very excited to see if speaking of listening to fans in the Twitter spheres,
he was receptive. He didn't say no.
He did not say no. That is true.
He did not say no. He was
fun. All right, so that programming note out of the way. Like I said, we're going to talk about season 5 in full tonight. The next 3 weeks before we get Star Trek Prodigy, we're going to be deep diving each of the Kelvin movies. So starting next week with Star Trek from 2009, followed by Star Trek Into Darkness, and then Star Trek Beyond. So get excited. Quick jab at Paramount. They are not on Paramount Plus at the moment. They are on HBO Max or just Max. because streamers be streaming and making choices. So if you don't have physical media, as I foolishly got rid of mine because I fell for the streaming lie, it's fine. It's on Max rewatch, and we'll get into that discussion next week. But that's not what we're talking about tonight.
As
Trevor.
you rewatch them, be on the lookout for a certain member of the Salon.
This is true. Apparently, he might be seen on the bridge, and he might be seen sliding, but he can never remember.
Oh, you're talking about me. Oh, no, I did both. I'm also in the scene where the Vengeance crashes. I was all over that fucking movie.
Spoiler alert.
Just all over that fucking movie.
Yeah.
It's been out for over a decade. Get over it.
What's the Vengeance? What do you mean it crashes?
Oh, whatever, girl.
In a way, Will landed the ship.
I landed the ship. Yeah, I did. Blue alert, please.
Yeah, I'm on it.
Live long.
I didn't say that.
It fully doesn't work, but I like it anyway. It works. It works in that it doesn't work. So there we go. Oh, good God. Anyway, let's talk about Star Trek Discovery Season 5. But of course, before we do that, we simply must set an intention.
All right, fellow Saloners, it's time to write our own season of Star Trek.
Is that a new candle?
It is a new candle. Thank you for noticing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
I tried to get it to kind of match the one in our logo, but anywho, thanks, kids. Appreciate it. In honor of season 5, which basically took an old episode of Star Trek, a TNG episode, and turned it into a season-long arc, or at least was inspired by it. I would like each of you to share with me what episode of Trek, any Trek, would you like to see turned into a season-long arc in any Trek? So you can take a TOS episode and make an entire season-long arc of TNG about it. You can do whatever you want. There are no rules, except if you light a candle, you have to set an intention. So I'll start us off, as I always do, by going rather recent. I would like an entire season built off of Picard Season 2, Episode 10, Farewell, because I want to know what the hell is up with the Jurati Borg. It was a totally interesting, then ignored plot point. One of the more interesting parts of Picard Season 2 that I was very critical of, but a weird thing to drop. Like, hey, by the way, there's an entirely new collective. We'll talk about that later. And then they never did. And that's just super weird to me. And I wouldn't mind seeing an entire season-long arc of that storyline really anywhere, but even just its own, like Picard Season 4, but maybe he's barely in it. He's just hanging out on the at the chateau while story ensues. But that's my episode that I would like to see turned into a story arc. I will go around the room and ask each of you yours. We will start with the lovely lady in the box below me, Joanne.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So, I'm going to pick some problematic, obscure episode in true fashion.
How about it, girl? How about
it? And so I would pick from DS9. I would pick Second Sight with the lovely, what is her name? Sally whatchamacallit. I can't think of her name right now. Beautiful woman.
Sally whatchamacallit.
And Cisco. It's the one where the scientist is the terraformer, married to the woman who is projecting herself, and she and Cisco hook up and fall in love, and then he finds out, like, oh wait, you're married and you're not real. And then her husband kills himself. Flying into the planet. Let there be light. Best scene, my favorite scene. And I would love to. It probably, if they hadn't canceled Discovery, it either would have been a great follow up to if we kept the progenitor tech, to kind of see, because he was a terraformer. So to kind of maybe see if maybe there was some correlation or what kind of happened, or maybe since we didn't keep it, to learn kind of from them because he was sort of the premier sort of designer and that sort of thing. I don't know. And then there could have been a whole thing about Finna and regretting, not hooking up with Cisco. They could have been gods. I don't know. It could have been a whole lot of things. But that's me. Second Sight, DS9.
I love it for many reasons, but not the least of which is your consistency, because I recall during our DS9 season 2 Thumb War, you were the only person defending that episode.
The only person, and I will do it forever.
and Fenna was played by the lovely Sally Elise Richardson.
Sally Richardson.
Good old Sally.
Yes. Who now writes for the Gilded Age. Yay.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Joanne. Ken, dear.
Well, I would say tapestry into a whole season, but they did that with Picard season 2. So I will say, of course, a TOS episode. So get your tosser alert out there. I would be interested in doing a 10-episode arc on Errand of Mercy, which is the first time you see the Klingons, and it's on Organia, and Kirk and Spock are trying to outwit Core, and you see the story of the Organians. I think that could have been a very interesting, longer story arc. I don't know about 10 full episodes, but a longer story arc, maybe telling some of the backstory of the Organians, a lot more about Kirk and Spock dealing with their time on Organia, as well as the rest of the crew of the Enterprise dealing with the incoming Klingon fleet and on the Klingon fleet. So that could have, I think, been a very interesting, much longer story. The episode obviously had a lot of implications for the franchise as a whole, with the introduction of the Klingons and the Organian peace treaty and so on and so forth. But that's my choice. Errand of Mercy, season 1 of the original series.
I had a feeling you were going to go TOS. Didn't know you were going to go to that episode. Also, in your defense, you're the executive producer. You decide how many episodes there are, so don't feel compelled to do 10. Krista, dear.
I had a tough time with this one because I couldn't really. I mean, you guys are raffling off episodes like, yeah, let's do this, and I'm like, fuck me, I have no idea. So ultimately, what I would have liked, I think, what I'm choosing is it's from TNG, but also Discovery. I want to know more about what preceded the progenitors. I want to know about the group that the scientists had to hide their shit. And I want to know about the scientists that went about, because each clue was so specifically associated with them and their fields and their everything. So to me, I would like and it wouldn't fit a 10 because I'm the producer, so it wouldn't fit a 10, but we could do like 3 episodes. It could be a mini series, and it explains how they got to where they were and how they made the decision between the thing that we can do, but should we do it? And making the decision that no, we should not do it. We should hide this. And I think that's an interesting thing that they didn't expand as much on as I would like. So
I like it.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you picked 3 episodes, because if the season had gone 13 episodes, that could have been the story
that could have been
thread
something
that was woven into it. I like it.
Yeah.
Will?
I had a couple. Norman picked mine in the chat, Voyager and the Vaudouar. I mean, it was like they awoke this entire empire. Another loose thread that I was like, why have they never been seen again? And this is actually a TOS alert, where the Kelvins, they were apparently more powerful than the Federation, could span whole galaxies, and just like disappeared, which is very odd. Or, and I'm gonna be controversial here. I want to see the repercussions of conspiracy. I know it was supposed to be the Borg, but like I kind of want to see what that entails. Like it would have been a good tie into Voyager, like they run into whoever conspiracy was about, but like at that time I don't think Star Trek had much of a didn't reference itself very often. yeah, those are my choices. I picked a lot, but I think the one I'd probably want to see would be the conspiracy one or the Kelvin one, because like they haven't been seen or heard from for decades, and it's like there's this group of people who are super powerful, but like they're just leaving everyone be. Like it's very strange.
It's very telling that TOS had no idea how much longevity it was going to have when they were
Yeah,
writing
or
it.
like any sense of science or
Yeah.
scale or anything like that. Like there was no reference to that, like, oh, they can traverse a whole galaxy, and it's like we still can't do that. Like
we're just gonna do silly sci-fi. Nobody will pay attention as we
yeah,
talk about it.
Short clothing and green women. Yeah, I heard
Yes.
that. Cardboard.
As we
sets.
discuss it,
Yeah.
as we discuss it weekly for hours on end. 60
Yeah,
years
exactly.
later.
Yeah. Can't get enough of it now.
Fearless leader.
Well, I'm going to greenlight all of these, obviously. As soon as I become a billionaire, my American dream is more Star Trek shows. I had a couple as well. Will just triggered a thought. What's the deal with the galactic barrier? Like, we know that there isn't one now, but there is in the Trek universe. So who put it there and why? That would be a fun a progenitor-esque kind of mystery. But the one that I was thinking of, Will and I actually talked about this yesterday, and I'm going to tie it into the 37s. What if Voyager was stranded for a bit? What if they actually had to live on that planet or another planet until they found something on the planet, or Seven was able to fix the warp drive? Like the warp drive was not fixable. They have to settle. We cut to 2 years later, 4 years later, and they fix the problem, but then people want to stay. And how that figure it's we said this yesterday too. It's very Battlestar New Caprica, but maybe that's when the Borg catch up with them, and that's why they have to end up leaving the planet or something along those lines. But I also had conspiracy bugs. I want to know what's up with them. Yeah, the 37s. What's going on with the first human colony in the Delta Quadrant we didn't even know existed, and the galactic barrier. Those are mine.
And Amelia Earhart, we have questions for her.
Yes, I wanted her to fly the ship. It would have been so fun. Like,
she could fly the ship.
Yeah, let her fly the ship. Yeah, excellent intention setter as always, Trevor. Thank you very much. Cheers to the what ifs. All right, y'all, let's get into it. Let's talk about Star Trek Discovery Season 5. Tragically, the final season of Discovery. They did not know it would be their final season when they were in production. Unceremoniously canceled, though they were given time and budget to do the epilogue that we were able to see, which was lovely. They didn't have a lot of time to do it before the impending writer strike and actor strike last year. And so tonight I figured we should just talk about the 5th season in full. Let's of course, as always, start with our top thoughts. I'll kick us off, and then we'll go in reverse order from our intention center, as we usually do. I love this season. I thought it was probably their best. I like aspects of all of the seasons, 1 and 2 especially, then 3 and a little bit less 4. But I felt like Disco with every season was making corrections based on feedback, based on their own, like, oh yeah, we figured this out halfway through, whatever, and then the story that they wanted to tell. I love that this season tied it into the chase. I think Discovery has been the best show at referencing Trek, other than Lower Decks, although they do it for comedic purposes. I'll just say it out loud. I love Picard season 3, but it was self-referential to, I think, a fault. It was a little too fan servicey at points. This season of Discovery, I thought, had the right mix. There's this centuries-old mystery, but they told us what it was right away. We weren't dancing around it for a couple of episodes. and they got into it. It was a fun adventure. They had, to varying degrees, depending on the episode, an interesting villain duo, and then that I think they stuck the landing with their story, but not with Maul. She continues to be my what's the phrase? My weakest link of this season, but it was beautiful. We could see things better than ever, although they still were not lighting their ships well enough to be seen. They put so much effort into these things, and then their audience can't see it. It's a bummer. Newer Trek needs to take a page out of the Star Wars lighting book, in my opinion, because their new shows, you can actually see their ships and they look model quality. But super fun character moments. I love Michael Burnham's story. I love how she came full circle within this season and as a series ender. I know a lot of people were saying this throughout. It felt like they did think it was going to be their final season, even though they didn't. So it would have been interesting where they would have taken the Calypso story as a anchor for season 6, which was apparently what Michelle Paradise was starting to work on before they were canceled. Another reason to be pissed at Paramount. That would have been an interesting story. Those are my top thoughts. We'll get into it in full, of course. So let me turn it over to Will.
I think this year overall, this season was pretty strong. I think like season 2 is my favorite just because I think it's a little more rewatchable. While there's like huge fucking issues with it, I think it's still like the most rewatchable season. And then this season I think is like a pretty like second, third place. It's a strong season. It knows. I feel like it's a little more. I would consider this season the show's third season because it changed so much from the first 2 to this one. And it did feel like it finally, as Jonathan Frakes says, grew its beard. It did feel like it kind of knew the characters. It felt like it wasn't like as much as I miss like OO and Ditmer, like them being gone, I didn't miss them because I felt more comfortable with Burnham, if that makes sense. It felt more like there was characters around her, but it felt like they were using them appropriately, and the people that were in her orbit were effectively used. I do think the season lacked any stakes and a sense of real danger. There wasn't like a ticking clock. Like we got like the stuff with the Breen and like the ship's really big and scary, blah blah blah. But like there wasn't anything that felt like there was actually real danger to what was happening. And Discovery's always had a problem with its villains. It always tries to make them human, but it makes them insufferable. And we learned this from Tarka, the prior season, where their attempt to make their villain multifaceted makes them kind of just fucking annoying. Like I don't make the villain the villain. Like I think it's okay to have someone be the bad guy, have their intentions not be good, not come from a place of like I'm trying to save a lover. It did feel like there was a lot of themes that were done better in this season, but were echoed in season 4. Like there was a lot of talk about communication. They had a very similar villain who was trying to get back to a loved one. Like there was a lot of things that maybe they were trying to like. It was done better this season, but they didn't tread any new water. It did feel safe. It did feel like a season that as I was watching, I felt like, oh, this is a great way to send the show off. Like we find this progenitor technology, it feels a little heightened, but I never felt like there was any sense of danger in the season, though I did appreciate the characters and the writing a little bit more. And it was more fun. It was a little more fun.
Is it me or Trev? Me. All right. I like the season as a whole. I think they nailed the ending, but I feel that it was complete. But I agree that they sort of I agree with Will that they in my opinion, there's a lot of buildup throughout the season, and then it's sort of like pre-ejaculate at the end. It just sort of goes, and it doesn't. There's no boom. There's no like it's phoned in. I think ultimately, with everything that they had rolling against them, not knowing whether they were continuing all of the background stuff, I think they did the best that they could, and what they came up with was admirable and certainly entertaining. I would say my only problem with the entire season is that I do not feel that the character Maul really needed to be included at all. If she were removed, it would not have diminished any of the storyline, and in fact would have given time to a more interesting character in Locke. I don't understand, and I don't know, and I didn't rewatch the season, but I'm not certain that they identified why he was at odds with his own people, why he was at odds with his own royal house. None of that was ever, he was just sort of there to die. And it's like, well, but he was more interesting to me, and the Breen were more interesting to me. And so when it comes to sort of the impotency of the end, you're hearing about this this Breen captain that is a complete terror. She fucked up Rayner's life. You hear all of this stuff, and then by the time we see her, she's just kind of disgruntled. It didn't really match. And for me, that's a very irritating thing that they do consistently. Maul to me is the Jack Crusher of this series. I didn't care who he was. I didn't care what his magic carpet ride was. I didn't give a shit about his red door. None of this mattered to me. So I think the story as a whole would have been better had she not been the means by which to facilitate it. But other than that, I thought it was complete. I thought, okay, I can see the ending. I can see that it concluded well, and I liked that it ended with people being together and there being a sense of community versus sort of this random, well, who knows what's happening. They at least we're still a community together, and I think that was pretty important.
So I feel like this season had some opportunities that they missed, and I also think that this season had some big swings that I think they hit out of the park. One thing that I will say is that, and it's also true of the entire run of Discovery, is, you always, in previous Star Trek series, you had the question about who is this series about? Is it a Kirk Spock McCoy series? Is it a Crusher Picard series? Discovery is about Michael Burnham in a big way. And there's no doubt that they basically knew from the beginning, and they certainly took it through this season, that this is the story of Michael Burnham, right? Traitor, redemption, captain, amazing story. And they did a great job in wrapping up our story with Dakota in the final episode. The other thing that this show did was, I thought it was cool that they reached back to the next generation and they pulled the chase concept forward. I also think that the idea of sort of chasing after the map and doing sort of the Indiana Jones style adventure worked in a lot of ways. It let them sort of have this overarching arc through the season, but also allow them to do some one-offs, like the race one-off with Tilly and Burnham. I thought that, talking about individual characters, I thought that Tilly shined in this season. I think that she was fantastic. It'll be interesting to see what happens with her character next. Of course, I already talked about Burnham. I think Burnham did a great job. I was sorry, but understand why we lost Saru for a good half of the season, because I really liked Saru's character. And the actor, of course, is fantastic too, but I get why he wasn't there. some of the machinations about Starfleet and the Breen and all that. I think the Breen was sort of like warmed over Borg Klingon stuff. Like I didn't quite get the sense that the Breen had their own, were standing on their own 2 feet. You could see, the Borg and the Klingons and the Romulans, even the Gorn. They all have their own distinctions. The Breen didn't seem so distinct to me. It seemed like it was a mishmash of various other things, and I think that was a missed opportunity. I agree with what everyone's saying about Maul and Locke. I think that if they would have kept Locke and had the story of sort of this renegade royal prince who's trying to go against his people, and they would have carried that forward, I think it would have given the Breen more of a dynamic in the season. And I think that keeping Maul instead was not very good. The whole connection between Maul and Book just was lost. It really wasn't there. There was like just a smile at the end. It was just they just didn't carry that through well. But overall, as a story about Michael Burnham and about this character, I think that if you look at it from that point of view, that this is her story, that I think they did a great job. I think there were better seasons than this season. I think the jump from the 23rd to the 32nd century, I think, that kind of worked well this season. I don't think it worked well necessarily in previous seasons. I think you finally felt the 32nd century a little bit more in this season and how it worked for them. And I have to say that I thought that, the idea of bringing the ISS Enterprise in, to me, was a bit of a stunt casting of the ISS Enterprise. I don't know if it really got us anywhere. We never did see it again, of course. I think it was just a way to use a different set of sets for another bottle show. But overall, as I said, as a Burnham story, I think it did a great job.
So this season probably it was not my favorite. That's still season 1 for me. But I really liked this season, and it probably had some of my favorite moments for sure. I agree with Ken that wholeheartedly this was, Michael's story. The first thing you do when you approach, any text is you ask yourself, whose story is it? And from day one, it's been Michael's story. And I love that they used this season to center her, but also, make her remarkably self aware. She was authoritative and in charge and calm, but was still, able to ask the questions about herself and to do her personal work without compromising kind of who she was or her sort of authority as a leader. I love that so much. I also think there was a missed opportunity. Again, I didn't watch Enterprise, so the Daniels reveal was less impactful. I was kind of hoping it would be one of the supervisors, kind of Gary Sevenish. It would have been a great opportunity to use Grudge. Hello, yes.
Yes.
She's a queen, right?
She's
So
actually Kovich. That'd be
like
amazing.
that would have been amazing, but we live and we learn. Because that never really paid off for me, and it really could have. So, but overall, it was a great season. I loved, moments. I agree the Breen didn't hold together for me well. And I do think it would have been far more compelling to have Locke kind of drive the story and maybe, finally bring kind of like Iborg and Hugh did, kind of bring that sense of reform and change throughout the Breen so that they weren't just brute force, but wanted to have a different perspective and outlook, and lead in a different way. But, given what they did, it was good and it was effective. And those are my top thoughts.
I think I align with Joanne on finding this to be maybe my second favorite season. Season 1 still holds a weird spot for me in terms of being just having fond feelings about it. But this one, I agree with what a lot of folks said about it being not just the first season that seemed like it was truly Burnham's story, but also executing it well in a way that made sense within the Trek universe. If you're going to make a show about a singular character and put them on a starship, give that starship a mission that is incredibly important to the captain. The captain was selected for a specific reason. It kind of Mission Impossible Star Trek. So I know everybody keeps talking about Indiana Jones, but this felt more Mission Impossible to me, and she was the leader of the team, and it just worked. There were other characters that came in when we needed them or needed their particular skills, but for the most part, it was the Michael Burnham show, and I was here for it. It was great. The I also have prepare yourself, Will. Don't yell at me. A little bit of headcanon around Red Directive. We talked about the color red popping up so much throughout just Star Trek in general, but particularly Star Trek Discovery. My headcanon is that the first Red Directive for Starfleet was the mission to send the sphere data into the future using the Red Angel to get the information and the Discovery itself and its crew forward in time, which made Michael Burnham the perfect Red Directive operative. Just kind of made sense to me. I also really appreciated that this season you can really talk about specific episodes in a way that makes sense and that you can remember what each episode was about. You can't really do that with most of season 4, most of season 3. Season 2 a little bit. Season 1 was a little bit more defined that way, but it got lost a little bit as the seasons progressed until this season. We can talk about each episode very specifically and talk about those stories and why we did or didn't like them. And I appreciate that. The Culber arc was weird to insert if we weren't getting a season 6, so I think it was risky to do it not knowing if they were going to get one. Had they gotten one, it would have been interesting to see that play out. Maybe he went full ship's counselor and dropped his medical duties altogether. Maybe he left the ship and went on some sort of journey, whatever, I don't know. But it felt like it was really going somewhere about halfway through the season and then just sort of vanished until he needed to be dependent upon a memory that he had. Like that was kind of weird. So that fizzled out, but I think it fizzled out simply because of the cancellation. The other piece that I felt was missing, and we can get into it more when we talk about specific episodes, but I consider the coda itself to almost be its own episode because it just had a very different vibe, very different feeling, very different purpose. This is going to sound silly, but it still bothers me that hanging over the fireplace was not a giant painting of Grudge. I say that as you know, Tegan passed away 3 years ago, and I think there's a photo of him in every room in our house, and probably always will be. In 40 years, in 40 years I'll probably be dead. In 30 years, we'll have added Rigel to the collection as well. Like there's just, you know, you can't have your four-legged companion be a practical main character and not pull them in and into that resolution of story, not have Grudge have been part of the story arc overall, particularly when you name their offspring after a deceased relative of books. It was such a cool tie-in that I just feel like that was a big missing piece. And clearly, whoever wrote that coda is not a pet parent. But otherwise, thoroughly enjoyed the season. We'll probably rewatch it as a binge later, and definitely before we do our our series conversation. But yeah, overall, very, very, very fond of it, and we'll pick it apart later when we get into the specifics.
Also, speaking of headcanon, they did not say that they don't have other kids, so it would be nice to assume that they did have others. I know last week some people were talking about how lovely it would have been to see Burnham with a daughter, given her whole arc. But I do love that they did have a son that they named Leto, and clearly, being the progressive future world that it is, Leto was the name of someone, but then instead of having one of their names, once they were together, they merged it, and so it's obviously Captain Leto Bookburn. You heard it here, it's true. Captain Leto Bookburn.
Stop trying to make Bookburn happen.
Never. All right, y'all. So it was alluded to in several top thoughts. This season, it had an overall, but each episode was a little more distinct than some of the seasons in the past. The rewatchability factor of individual episodes. So I'm curious about y'all's favorite episodes and why. I'll kick us off. I had a bit of a hard time, particularly at the end, because I loved Labyrinths, but I think it's Face the Strange for me because I do love a time travel. I love a timey-wimey. We talked about this at the time. I think what Janal had so many things going on in that episode, kind of like it was a little too hectic for me, but the Saru and Tarina stuff, if they had moved that over to Face the Strange, so we have all the timey-wimey stuff happening on the ship, and then also this very unconsequential wedding announcement nonsense happening to juxtapose the emergency. Like, time is frozen, and yet in another way time is frozen because we're talking about a wedding announcement. I think would have put it over the edge. But I love a time travel episode. I love that we got speaking of the intention setter, we got little touches of Voyager in that we got the Krenim referenced with the time bug. We got the temporal Cold War from Enterprise referenced, and we got to see Michael fight herself and like literally confront her past, which was lovely. Any order, who wants to talk about their favorite episode this season? I see people stammering for that mute button. Let's go to Will.
Okay.
And let's do it this way. Will, you do your thing, and then when you're done, popcorn it to you pick. You decide who's next.
Oh God. Okay.
It's too much power.
I would say Face the Strange is my favorite episode, but Labyrinth is up there too. And the irony is that both of them are episodes that really kind of center on Burnham. But I think Face the Strange takes it because it, in a season that was not supposed to be their last, visiting these different times in the show's history was like very last season feeling. And it felt like it was such a great way to maybe kick off Labyrinths, where like Burnham talks about how she is in the present, having visited her past. So I liked that. So I think those are my two. And I think hello, Walter. Labyrinths as well, because it was so it felt really Star Trek, but like it dealt with the idea of the dealing with kind of Burnham's damage, like her own trauma as a character, like dealing with it in a way that was really that felt like it wasn't it didn't feel like they're trying to retcon something. Cunty book as well, but like it didn't feel like they were retconning something. It felt like they were a character was dealing with something in real time. And that's what I like about that episode. And it didn't feel like they were trying to the show always felt like it was trying to course correct, but this was the first season I feel like they weren't doing that necessarily. But those two. Who wants to go next? Who wants to go? Who wants to do it? All right, Krista, do it.
All right, because I'm a romantic at heart. My favorite episode is the last episode, and I'm shamed because all of y'all know the names of the episodes, and I don't know the name of this episode, but the final episode,
Life Itself.
Okay. And the reason why is because in addition to trying to figure out what this progenitor thing is and all of the information and all of that, from the beginning, it was the process by which Burnham accepts who she is, all of the things that she's done. She reconciles all of this, and she takes the massive risk of telling the one person that she loves them. She has no problem showing that she cares about anybody else, but Book is the one that is the real risk. And as a romantic at heart, that to me, was an appropriate conclusion for the series. That she had gotten to the point where it was not necessarily important that he reciprocated. It was important that she could say it, and that she could mean it, and she could be vulnerable and not defensive and not too afraid. She really just came into her own. And so when you end it with the one child or however many children or whatever, you see that they have reached that level of relationship that Saru and Tarina enjoy, which is they are individuals, but they are also one together. But they don't have to forfeit any part of who they are in order to make that happen. And if they have to make compromises, they make compromises because they love that person, not out of duty or something resentful. They do it because they love that person, and that love is important enough for them to compromise. So to me, it was a complete story because it showed her from episode 1 in season 1 being a very defensive, almost, to me, underlying fearful, emotional person, to a person who has is victorious over the things that we do to undermine ourselves. And that's what I really liked about the ending. And to me, it seems very complete. I don't feel like anything was really left. And for all of their obstacles, that's quite an achievement, that there really wasn't anything left. They managed to come up with something complete, even with all the unknowns. So, and I like they're together, so let's not get into it.
I just noticed somebody on Twitter posted Leto and said Spock's nephew. I'm like, oh, that's a nice connection I did not consider.
Uncle Spock.
Yeah, he'll never know, but it's adorable either way. Ken or Joanne, do you want to share a favorite episode? Let's go to Joanne.
So, without a doubt, my favorite episode is Whistle Speak. It, as you know, kind of my core skill set is talking about faith and culture and what that means for us and how people live out their faith and the texts that inform them. So this was very much in my wheelhouse. But not only that, it was my favorite because it was really well done. So many shows have just a very superficial understanding of kind of faith and development and culture. But this was a really sophisticated approach. It is very much how myth and worship and deity and all of those things develop within a society. And again, it asks some very provocative questions about what it means to be a person of faith or to have faith in the midst of tremendous science and information and technology. And you also got to see, kind of again, Burnham in her bag, being the xenoanthropologist, being sensitive to what was going on, but also still unafraid to um, not to make things happen. So I loved it. I think, like I said earlier in the season when we talked about it, it has the potential, and I hope someone takes it up in beta canon and writes a book because I think it would serve one well. And yeah, I loved it.
So I was going to say Whistle Speak as well, and I was going to say the ones that were already brought up. So I will bring up one that I think had its moments, and that was Red Directive, the premiere. I thought that it was actually interesting way that it set up the story, introduced Rayner, and there's nothing like two starships diving headlong into the desert to stop an avalanche. So I thought that that was an interesting concept. And it was interesting to see how they again set up a character who I thought, when I first saw Rayner, he was sort of this cross between Shaw and Kirk a little bit, and began the story of Rayner's arc, which I thought was a really great arc through the entire season with this character and the relationship, the dynamic with Burnham. And again, it's a shame that we probably will not see this character again, because I think that it was a great one. So I'll go with the season premiere. They did a decent job of setting up the season.
Oh, Rainers of the Lost Arcs. Um, sorry, it's the wine. I am actually going to. So Joel said it in the chat earlier, and Ken enjoyed it as well, and Joanne just talked about how it was her favorite. But Whistle Speak, I'm going to see all of your favorite episode of the season and raise you one of my all-time favorite episodes of Star Trek. Was Whistle Speak, and there are a ton of different reasons, but not the least of which is that. It's just one of the trekkiest treks that has ever trekked. I mean, it did the things that good Star Trek always does. Not the least of which is question its own ethical principles. Sorry, Walter, I'm boring you. It it questions its own ethical principles by making by making Burnham really, not anyone else, question the Prime Directive, question whether or not it's worth upholding it amidst the consequences of maintaining it. And so it just tests itself and puts its characters in appropriate situations that make them question everything. That just made me love it. It's a little unusual in that usually my favorite episodes of Trek have a lot to do with technology and technology's impact on the story and the ethics, but in a roundabout way, this one sort of did that with I forget what the hell the weather modification device was called, but with whatever was in the tower. And yeah, for that, Whistle Speak, hands down. My second favorite is my aforementioned Separating the Coda as its own episode. Well, I know it's been mentioned as the Coda was a short trek, but I love an ending that gives a little bit of a flash forward. It was the perfect one. It didn't tell us what happened to everybody, so it's not like there isn't room for the other characters to do fun things in the future. But giving Book and Burnham and their family a happy ending was really important. It also, I think I mentioned this when we talked about the finale last week, it made the universe feel larger again, because Sanctuary 4 at least feels like maybe they're the only people living on it, or there's only a few people living on it. It made everything seem bigger and lonelier, which I kind of like that feeling when it comes to sci-fi. I mean, we when we talked about Picard season 3, we were sort of joking about how everything was like 3 minutes away at Warp 4, and this wasn't that, and I enjoyed that. And yeah, I don't know. There's something I've rewatched the Coda several times just by itself, and love every second of it, particularly the visuals of their home and the interactions of the two of them with their son. So anyway, those are mine.
That is actually a lovely segue into the next section. I wanted to talk about favorite character moments, and that is definitely one of mine. I'd love to hearing about everybody's favorite episode and want to get more moments, and saw some.
I did that on purpose.
Yeah, thank you. I saw some in the chat as well, so keep it active in the chat. We'd love to see it. But yeah, I loved what we got in the Coda for a lot of reasons. Like there were some little things like, yeah, I want to know what's going on with everybody. I'm wondering, why is Vance still there? They didn't technically say that he was still in charge. It was just inferred because it was a meeting with a new captain, but whatever. Like little things I loved hearing that Tilly is still at the academy and she's now the longest serving professor. So 86 seasons of Star Trek, Starfleet Academy, starring Mary Weissman. Thank you. But I thought it was especially lovely to see Burnham happy, given everything that she's been through. So Paramount Plus themselves put out this lovely graphic of like Mutineer. I forget the next one. I forget, but like she from Mutineer to Admiral Burnham. Lovely to see. I also thought like I've said this kind of thing before. I don't think I could truly understand what seeing this feels like for people who don't look like me, but seeing a happy Black family not on a BET show, and that's not a knock on BET, but typically in media, we don't see it outside of Black owned media. Seeing a happy Black family in Star Trek was lovely. Especially given everything that Burnham has been through. I also loved that she named that beautiful creature Alice, because she's now living in her wonderland. That is Sanctuary 4, which is a lovely tie back to Alice in Wonderland, which is of course a tie to the animated series. I think everybody remembers in season 1, she talks about how Amanda would read that to her and Spock, and it's just lovely to see that little tie-in. That was one of my. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to. Listen, we have all shat all over that terrible mall wig and that ridiculous smoky eye. Other than that, the hair and makeup team and the prosthetics team and the costume department, with I think it's Anthony Tran this season. Incredible work. They didn't have a lot of time for that coda, and her costume, not even the uniforms. The uniforms were incredible, but her costume, just like her homesteading, looked lovely. And I mean, I said it last week in the visuals, Black don't crack, but they made them look 40 years older, and it didn't look cheesy. Like, it looked very real. And Sanique was just an incredible actress. She can play 40 years older on a whim. So favorite character moments, anything that comes to mind that folks want to throw out, maybe a show of hands this time so that I don't call on somebody who doesn't have one. Let's go to Ken, and then Ken will ask who wants to go next.
Sure. So I'm going to go back to Whistle Speak. I loved the end of that episode. I especially loved the dynamic between, as the air was escaping, Tilly talking with the young lady. I can't remember that character's name. I'm sure someone else does. And the whole episode with Tilly, and just the entire episode's dynamic, besides what Joanne and Trevor were talking about with all of the religious implications and the prime directive implications, just seeing the friendship between Michael and Tilly very clearly in that episode. And we talked about at the time, the one thing that I just don't get is why they just ate that sugar cube without thinking. But okay. But beyond that, I thought it was very, very well done. And as I say, the last scene where Tilly is suffocating and trying to brighten the spirits of that young lady, in juxtaposition to Burnham saying, "The hell with the prime directive, I've got to save her." That was just fantastic. Oh, and I saw Joanne raised her hand.
Thank you. So I have to talk about Labyrinth as one of my favorite sort of character moments. Not only just, book serving cunt, but also Michael and that moment of realization and self-reflection with book Dr. Derek's in the library about, you know, the possibility and the pain of, having to always be questioned, why are you in the seat? justifying her existence resonated deeply with me because, again, kind of as a Black woman living in America, working in corporate America in a leadership position, you're always kind of having to justify yourself and deal with people's unconscious bias, having all of your skill and ability be questioned, always being considered less than or aggressive or just not up to par, working twice as hard to get half as much. Um, it's a moment in Trek I will never forget. I applaud them for including it. And I was not surprised to learn that a Black woman wrote that particular scene. So because we've all kind of lived that journey. So for them to include it and execute that so well was really important to me. And I'm sure it was really important to a lot of people.
I think my favorite character moment was the Saru Tarina stuff, like throughout the whole season, but especially like the moment when they decided to get married and all that. Like I thought Saru not being in the season so much, I thought he had a really lovely arc because it felt like I didn't know where his character would go like later on because he always like I loved him in the captain's chair and then I kind of liked him as like the diplomatic stuff. But this I think it made I guess it felt like there was no one who was like kind of who scared Saru. Like it was Burnham in the first season, but that was for different reasons. Now it felt like Tarina scared him, but like in a fun way. So I don't know. That was my favorite stuff. Was the Tarina, Saru, their whole situation, and there should be. I need to see what's gonna if they have a child, what that child looks like. Like in the 32nd century, they figured that out. Like I need to see a Kelpian Vulcan child
with little things coming out and like.
Yeah, something. I need something. But yeah, no, I
That's
love
how they mind melt.
The little ganglia.
That's just how they mind melt now.
Yeah, a ganglia mind melt.
You're ruining
adorable.
it. You're all ruining it. I just thought
Sorry.
it would just be Saru with pointy eyebrows and ears, but
with pointy ears, right? The
No,
ganglia would come out the pointy ears.
The reason why you liked
Fuck my
it,
drag then, God will. All right.
the reason why you liked it though was because they each acknowledge they have roles outside of who they are to one another. And it was
yeah. It felt like, when you it was like you have to keep
one another and say, I don't need your permission. I can do this. I need to do this. And I hope you support me. And then finding that support. It was literally the best depicted relationship of all of the relationships. It was the most sound relationship.
Super cute. She was also funny, like in the first episode, or must I mind meld to get it? A Vulcan telling a joke. I love it.
Like during the coda where she's coming down and she's trying not to smile. She's like trying so hard. Like I couldn't tell if it was the actress or if it was like the character, which
or maybe that veil was pulling back her.
Well, Mama, those baby bangs were infants. Those
things, beautiful.
Those baby bangs were zygotes. Like that was back on those things were back here. Like those things could be taken out by a Plan B pill. Like they were not. Those were first miss period bangs. Those weren't baby bangs. First miss period. Like they were back there, and then all of the photos too showed her with that wig. So I don't know if it was because the veil was pulling it back, or it was just the wig. Did she lose
apparently
it?
The dress. The dress was apparently 25 pounds. So who knows how much of that was in the veil?
But every photo of it was like that. If I'm gonna insert some headcanon, I feel like she was like in the bathroom like right before and like cut her bangs really short, like got panicked and cut, like just kept cutting them. Like they're not even, and then she's back here and we're gonna do it anyway.
Who was it? Yeah. Who was it in How I Met Your Mother? The guy gave himself a buzz cut. He freaked out and gave himself a buzz cut just before his wedding.
Yeah. I was thinking more like Fleabag, the sister.
Oh,
where like she just it's chic, it's French. Yeah.
don't lie. Oh,
All
that whole
Okay,
that
Joel,
whole
that was good. Look
right.
at Joel's comment.
bang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Klingon ambassador bang. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Well, y'all have shit all over my answer.
Nobody's shitting on your answer. We're riffing.
All over the answer, and I'm going to make another drink, and I'm going to stop.
No, that was really important, but let's talk more about her hair.
Yeah, we're riffing. We're having fun with it.
Point out because before I thought it was just like a continuity issue, but we've seen it in all of these cast photos, like the wedding photo that they had.
Yeah.
That way back. The best character development was Tarina's bangs.
Yeah.
That would have been the villain of season 6. Tarina's bangs.
I love Ms. Rosling. I can't wait to meet her at STLV. Tarina is fantastic. Such a lovely inclusion since season 3. I loved the growth that they got. Also wanted to throw out Raynor, a lovely addition. I keep saying lovely, but he was a great addition this season as a potential foil, then ally, and then confidant of Michael, and giving in a season where we're getting an arc of Michael that then full circles not just within the season but the entire series for her character, giving her, yes, an alien, but an older white man for her to mentor, and to give a second chance like she got was these are kinds of things that I think we need to see more in media. It's too easy to see men talking over women. It happens in real life way too much. It like telling those stories. It's like with gay media, and I know that this happens a little bit with stories centered around people of color, like wanting to focus on the trauma rather than the joy and the empowerment. So it was really cool to see Michael as a mentor, being able to come full circle in that moment. And then within this season, this is I'll be a little critical here. Discovery wasn't always good about this with various characters, but this season with Raynor, even though this was the first season we got him, we had a full arc. We know why he doesn't like the Breen. He came around to the other people's way of thinking. He was clearly a product of the post-burn mentality in Starfleet, plus his backstory. And like we show him learning, like when the progenitor in the mindscape, or not in the mindscape, in the progenitor tech was talking about the various kinds of motivations that people fall under: duty, community, etc. That coming right after Raynor was like, oh, this is just like on Kumal. I fucked up there. We need to switch tacks. So seeing it's never too late to change your mind. It's never too late with new information to do better. That's why I personally liked one aspect of, I liked a lot of aspects, but one aspect of Star Trek Picard season 2 that I particularly liked was that this octogenarian was finally dealing with his mommy issues, because it's never too late. And so seeing that with Raynor, like it's never too late to change your mind and to make a different choice, to make a better choice. Other character moments that folks wanted to highlight?
Tilly being comedic in the face of death.
Yes.
The sacrifice. Just there are moments throughout not only this season but the series, which we can talk more about in a couple of months, that only work because it's Mary Wiseman. Like they're only funny because she's the one delivering the line. And
I'm so glad that we had Tilly back in full force this season.
Yeah, and it was so easy to write her in.
I need that guy back. I need that guy that was flirting with her back. I need him back.
Jax.
He was
bring that man back.
Wedding.
Yeah, he was there. He was there in the coda.
Yeah.
It wasn't the wedding of him and Stan, but it was a wedding.
Yeah. We need it. We need it.
Are you having a moment?
I'm very
Should
lonely.
we leave you alone?
No,
Should
I
we all
was
just log out for a minute?
Salon's guys. We're ending the salon early. Stan needs a moment to himself.
no, I was trying to find this because I already had my moment online when I had my can I say something. And it was funny because people were picking up what I was putting down because I was definitely talking about Linus, but I was absolutely talking about all three of these people. I love that this Vulcan is smiling, by the way. Or maybe he's a Romulan. We don't know. But yeah, all three of them walk into my room and I walk out with a limp and a smile.
Push the button.
Yeah, I gotta push the button.
Listen,
Push the button.
Don't
Yeah,
even
push
try to not push
Wow.
the button.
Yeah.
I would never. We even got it in the chat. Thank you, Krista. Yeah. There were a lot of little
Also,
things that I certainly
I
wish
was
we
just
got more of, but like, yeah, more of him with Tilly. But Trevor, you go ahead. Moment's over.
Yeah, it was wildly inappropriate.
Oh, well, we wouldn't want wildly inappropriate things to be said on the salon ever.
Heavens to Murgatroyd.
So
Yeah, Rachel mentioned Michael and Saru saying goodbye to each other. Their moments together. I loved her concern for him because you have a wedding to go to. Let me do this dangerous thing, and him being like, girl, I'm a Kelpian, you're a human. I run faster than you. Let me do this. What else? There's so many things. I give her a lot of shit, but I did like some moments with Maul and Locke. I agree that Krista, I think you said it really well. We didn't have much of his motivation for getting away from the Breen. We just know that like he's not the Primarch for a reason that they never clarify. His uncle's the Primarch, but he's really the Scion. We learn that later. And I'll just say out loud again, I think if they had switched it, if Maul had been the one to die and he accepted his fate as a means of resurrecting her, I think that would have been a lot more interesting. Because not knowing what he sees in her is easier for me to accept because men be stupid, right? We know this. More than her shimmying side to side and we're like, if I can't be with Locke, I'd rather be dead. And like all of her weird choices in every episode following.
And her dirty face.
Wash your face, girl. That is not a smoky eye. It's been weeks. It's been weeks. Take out that wig and wash your face. It's the one miss with the hair. And
maybe she's related to the Wicked Witch of the West and is afraid of water.
with all the effort that they put into her, I in the end, I really felt like he cared more about her than she cared about him.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't buy that. And the episode in which they sort of showed how the two of them got together, I can understand why he would find her enticing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a wet dream. Of course, he's going to find her enticing. But in the absence of why she is so disgruntled and why he is disengaged from his own heritage, it leaves too many questions.
Yeah, and I found his interest in her more believable than hers in him.
Well, but I think there's something to be said about the prosthetics. I think sometimes I feel like it might be easier for an actor to play with prosthetics because you really do get to sort of step out of who you are and step into something else. And with the limited amount of screen time that Locke had, I really felt that he was far more authentic as a character than she was. She was, dime store Daenerys. I just I just didn't like her. And I resent the fact that they've spent so much time and didn't, whether it was the actress's choices or the director's choices, I don't know how that shit works, but it didn't translate well. And I think that anybody looking at the dailies, I believe they call those dailies, I would be hard pressed for anybody in that room to not say he is the more compelling character.
Yeah.
I needed there to be a scene where, because we only saw him without his helmet. I think what we needed for everything to make sense was for a couple of female Brain to take their helmets off, and they all have the same hair.
Yes.
They're all just wearing the same horrible wig, and she's like, "Oh, that's what you see in me."
Yeah. I also a fun a fun behind the scenes thing is that actor who played Locke, Elias, I just saw his last name.
I think it's can get it.
Elias can get it. Yeah.
Is his name. Yeah.
Push that button.
Yep. Yeah. Definitely. Elias Tufexis is his name.
That's what I said.
Elias to fuck us, please.
Elias can fuck me.
Yeah. Anyway, it was super cool for that actor to be able to come back. He was in episode 3 in season 1. He was one of the prisoners on the shuttle with Burnham when she first gets picked up by Discovery. He's also a huge Star Trek fan. I love it when, like, this isn't a requirement by any means, but I do love it when a true fan gets to be part of the franchise. It's why, like, seeing like the people behind the scenes, you're like, I grew up, like, I got into visual effects because I love Star Trek, and that kind of thing is really cool. So, like, he posted on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, like, this super cheesy, when he was 15, him and his friends were pretending to be on a bridge and in a battle sequence. I definitely did that when I was a kid with my friends. So it's just lovely to see him. God damn it, Trevor. I know why you went off camera.
I did that yesterday.
Pretended to be on a bridge.
I did. Fighting
Shields. Yeah.
And then I made some eggs.
And then you made eggs.
He also commented, they put out that poster, that Discovery Season 5 poster, which was a big cast diorama. And he said, you know, here I am right next to the Enterprise. Not too bad. I love it. I thought that was cool.
Super cool. So we've talked about character moments and favorite episodes. What about the various plot bits that we've seen this season? We obviously had the overarching progenitor tech, the mission that Kovich sent them on, this red directive. But throughout, we had a lot of fun stuff. One thing I'll throw out, I loved how they, like, the crux of this season was figuring out these various clues and finding the next one. It could have been so easy for them to do it the same way in a couple of episodes, but I loved how they mixed it up. We didn't see every scientist. You know, we saw a hologram of the Romulan. We saw we did not we got a Jintara to interact with Janal. We got, for the Denobulan, they were just named but not seen. We had Dr. Derrick's was referenced. Cunty Book sort of took on Dr. Marina Derrick's joie de vivre. And then also with the clues themselves, they were hidden differently. One was under an archaeological dig of sorts. One was scratched in a vial. One was hidden in a mindscape. You know, I love that they mixed it up so that it wasn't like find a totem in every episode. How about for you all? Any various plot bits in different episodes that we found intriguing or fun? Trevor, did I see you raising a hand?
You didn't. No. But I will say.
Well, then go back on mute. I want to see hands. No, go ahead.
But there is. I did enjoy. Yes, he's my Discovery husband, but I did enjoy getting to see more of Reese, particularly in episode
Been
8.
sexy in that captain's chair.
Give me the name of the episode. I blanked.
Labyrinth.
Is it Labyrinth? Labyrinth. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was in command. Yep.
And find him on Twitter and read the post regarding that whole day when he was filming the scenes of him in the captain's chair while his real life wife was giving birth. It's kind of, I mean, he made it home in time, but she was in labor while he was filming that scene.
Yeah.
So, yeah, crazy stuff, fantastic stuff, and it's I loved seeing the character so much and seeing him so capable, but also loved knowing what was going on behind the scenes.
And he's a Constitution girly, just like the rest of us. Those curves.
He couldn't be more perfect if he tried.
Kenneth?
I like the science. I like the Lagrange point science between the two black holes. I thought that was interesting. Star Trek has, throughout its 50 plus years, been a bit loosey-goosey with its science now and again, but it's, tried to be, claims to be more of the science fiction as opposed to, when they argue Star Trek versus Star Wars, Star Trek is science fiction and Star Wars is space fantasy kind of crap. That argument anyway. But I love the idea of the two black holes, the Lagrange point between the two, and that's where the progenitor tech was hidden. I thought that was a cool little plot point.
Norman mentioned it quite some time ago, but no one talked about the butthole anomaly.
Can you be more specific?
How many butthole anomalies were there in season 5, Stanley?
Well, are we talking about the holes, the black holes, or are we talking about the portal tech?
In mirrors. The
sphincter, for sure.
Yes.
For
Jesus.
sure. Listen,
there were
so
black holes. So much hole.
There were black holes. There was a portal. There was the casing around the portal that sucked people in. There were multiple holes, Trevor. I stand by it.
Wasn't there a pink hole? There was a.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember.
Push the other button. Push the other button.
Yeah. That's okay.
In the arms of the angel.
Mess.
That graphic is so chopped, but I love it. It's so
done
chopped.
on purpose. I want to support our allies,
like
but also
looks
It
like
looks like a newspaper clipping. It looks like a ransom note or a newspaper clipping. It's so fucking vile. I love it.
Yeah. I was going for I wasn't going to put a lot of effort into it because
Allies.
Yeah.
Because it was my idea.
Also that. B, it was Trevor's idea. But also C, like it fit the vibe of Sarah McLachlan animal rescue song.
Listen, I just think of stray animals and the fucking 3 o'clock in the morning where I'm looking at an animal sitting in an empty tire. It's like
my childhood, like I've always had insomnia in waves. My childhood, I remember like sounds of innocent or the Celtic soundscapes infomercial, the Sounds of Love that was like Celine Dion and Michael Bolton, and that commercial being on in between longer commercials for those CDs.
No, I have some tea on Sarah McLachlan. You want to hear it?
Is this good for the public consumption, or should we do it in the after
We
track?
should do that after.
All right. What other fun plot bits do people want to talk about?
Join our Patreon for
Join our
Star
Patreon
Trek
with the tea.
for Star Trek holes.
Show.
Other thoughts on Star Trek buttholes or plot bits from this season?
So we saw Book without his shirt on.
Oh, it was so nice.
I don't know if
That
that's a
is-
plot point. I don't know what it was,
It's
but
not
I
a
was
butthole.
watching for the plot.
yeah,
Butthole.
it was a big plot.
That
Yeah.
was.
There's a lot of plot, like Deep Space
That was-
9 inches.
That'll make you go to Pilates.
You're welcome.
Oh boy.
I had already counted it whether he pushed the button or not. I was like, fuck
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you so much.
Done.
Thank you so much.
Done.
It'll make you do Pilates too.
know. Yeah, that plot point's gonna run about about 9.5, 10 episodes. Thank you, Stanley.
I think
I
what we
can
need
keep
to
going.
understand is
Deep
that
Space
both
9
Rex-
inches? Wow.
Are you
But it's
watching
9,
this on
but it
playback,
has a
Ken?
little
Are you not
inch
actually
sign
here
next
right
to it.
now?
You're 30
I am
seconds
not here right
behind.
now. Yeah, I'm 30 seconds behind.
I would like to re-up my request, Ken. 2 glasses of wine.
Yeah, okay, fine.
And then live long.
Live,
But
laugh.
look, I'll do the 2 glasses of wine at STLV. How's that?
If you don't get the live long joke at home, kids, there's a short salon all about it. Scroll back.
Yes, shameless plug to subscribe on YouTube.
Is it shameless to plug our own show on our
I
show?
don't know.
That just feels appropriate.
We have
We need a
2
shameless plug
glasses of
button.
wine.
So, there's no sponsors, so we have to plug it ourselves. Plug it. Plug the hole.
Apparently, we're getting back to
I'm pretty sure I can get us like
Is that what
a.
we're talking about?
I'm pretty sure we can get us like.
In the eye.
I'm sure we could get like a
Can
sponsorship
we
from like
not
Adam
have
for Adam or something.
Sarah
Like
McLachlan?
Adam,
Can we
50% off this.
Hey Harvey, I'm coming out man size. Let's get rid of Sarah McLachlan, and I need PJ Harvey. I'm coming out man size.
Who? What?
And then everyone was
Coming
not.
out man size, girl. Have you read my memoir?
Your memoir, Live Long and Serve Cunt.
Yeah, live long, serve cunt. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Wow.
that is
Live
a
long, be a
lovely,
faggot.
lovely segue into the end of our salon. We're coming up on an hour and a half.
Wow.
We're getting loopy. My tequila's kicking in.
Drunk.
Lovely as always. Absolutely criminal that this is the final season, but what a season to go out on. Like I said last week, a huge thanks to everybody involved in Star Trek Discovery, cast and crew, whether you work there a day or all 7 years. You all reignited the franchise. You've given us so much. Cheers to you all. Thank you very much. Trevor, give us the tallies, please.
There were 7 problematic gay alerts. For those of you who were keeping up and counting at home, you only saw 6 because I triggered one in the pre-show. There were 2 canon alerts, 2 tosser alerts, 2 problematic ally alerts, 1 explosive saucer separation, and Will landed the ship once. Bonus points. Will got 400 bonus points for first missed period bangs. Keeping up with the trend, Joel in the comments got 2,500 bonus points for bangs. 50 points to Ken for Wizard of Oz callbacks. And sorry, Stan, you earned 25 bonus points for the first time ever about a month ago, and I had to take them away tonight for continuing to try to make book burn happen.
It's gonna happen. They're
So
not
you're
going to
back at 0.
hyphenate in the 32nd century. Book burn doesn't mean what it means now.
You're back at 0, Bill.
Whatever. Leto Bookburn is going to be a great captain. I don't accept the rescinding of my points, but also it's not up to me. So
I own the spreadsheet.
I do accept
It's not a shared document.
I want to thank you all, my fellow saloners. Lovely as always. Thank you to everybody in the chat. I want to throw out Text Trek will be doing a very different but similarly themed stream tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central. I believe that's 5 p.m. for us Pacific. Doing their own Disco Season 5 retrospective with his streaming partner, Dave, I want to say is his name. I don't interact with him as much. Is that right? It's Steven and Dave, right? Anyway, Fathery and Techstrek will be live tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central. They always are a lovely stream to watch. Definitely check them out. Speaking of streaming things, please don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube at Salon Trek. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers before the end of Pride Month. If you don't subscribe, you're homophobic. You can also follow along on Blue Sky and Twitter at Salon Trek as well. Tell your friends. And again, a programming note, next week, we are going to start a 3-week series talking about the various Kelvin movies, starting with Star Trek 09 next week. And until then, thank you all again, and may you all live long and prosper.